ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ and ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. ਸਾਰੀ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ wherever you are in the world, I do an ਅਰਦਾਸ that ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਚ ਰੱਖਣ, and hope wherever you are in good health and good spirits. With that, let's dive straight into what is the topic that I am going to cover today in today's live stream, as well as the Twitter space. So people who have joined, just to let you know, we are currently live streaming on Twitter on my X account, which is FTW Harjeet. And then we are also live streaming on my Instagram, which is the same handle, FTW Harjeet. And we're also live on my YouTube, which is Finding Truth with Harjeet. I also have a space, which is currently Twitter space, which is live right now. So in case you want to interact with me and ask questions live, you can join there and you'll be able to interact throughout the presentation. So today's presentation is very specific. I want to cover in English, and then we'll do a Punjabi version of this as well. There recently has been an indictment filed in California against certain transnational terrorist groups which are backed by the Indian state. It has made a lot of noise and also generated a lot of interest in the American circles, in the Sikh circles, as well as in India itself, because in that indictment there are 37 people who have been named. I'm told there are roughly 24 arrests which have been made of terrorists backed by the Indian state who were operating out of US, out of India, Europe, as well as in Canada, to conduct terrorist activities on behalf of the Indian state. Many of those activities were targeting the dissenters, especially the Sikh minority groups, threatening them, extorting money from them, killing them, assassinating them, and so on, along with also drug peddling to generate funds for these activities. We already know that these are well known criminal gangs which are run by the Indian state as an extension of their intelligence organizations. These are proxies, state proxies. So there is evidently a lot of interest in this. What is this indictment about? We already know that there was another case filed in New York in 2024, in which there was a person, Indian national, arrested. His name is Nikhil Gupta. And there was another person who is an Indian intelligence officer who was charged in that case, in which the case explicitly names that these are the people connected with the Indian government who are running these kind of, terrorist organizations on US soil. However, this indictment has come. In this indictment, also, there is a name of an assassination of Sardar Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Canadian Sikh activist, which is also the primary core case that is running in New York in a different case. So I'm trying to see that while we're trying to see what does this mean. This evidently the Sikh diaspora is very excited that hey, finally things are moving. Finally, US is waking up to Indian state terrorism against some diaspora groups, especially the Sikhs, by India in on US soil. But I want to take a bit more objective look at this so-called indictment and see if it is really what it is being made to look. Does it really hold India accountable for cross-national terrorism? Um, and I have a small presentation that I will walk you guys through this as we walk through it. So the title of the presentation is "Trade Over Blood: How Washington and Ottawa weighed Sikh lives against a deal with Delhi." So we're going to take an hypothesis and we're going to take a skeptical view that maybe what is being projected is not what's actually happening. Maybe this indictment is more of a signal that both US and Canada are giving a soft landing to India. That while India has been caught with its red-handed conducting terrorism on US soil, we can look at all these legal cases and see if that actually tells us that is US taking the right kind of action, or are they actually giving India a soft landing. My hypothesis, after looking at all of this evidence and the technical sides of these cases, that this is probably a soft landing for India. And I'm going to present that evidence to you, and I will let the uh, audience, no matter which side of the divide you are from, form your opinion or own opinion. I will primarily lay out facts with some opinion added here and there based upon what I see stuff. Okay. So this is the presentation. If you guys are watching me, I'm also showing a PPT on live stream. You can watch the PPT there. And let's kind of so I keep getting these phone calls. But anyways, let's go to the next slide. So the claim we are testing, okay? So in this presentation, we're going to test claim that we are testing is that the US and Canada are quietly deprioritizing accountability for the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar and the plot to kill Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, an American citizen, because both these capitals want trade deals or geopolitical favors from New Delhi. Okay. And the ground rules as we go through this analysis that I will keep is I'll only discuss the court documents, the named officials which are within the documents. The quotes that I will provide will be exactly from the court documents. And I'll also give the other side which might claim that no, India is being held accountable, some kind of a fair hearing. So we want it to be a falsifiable test at the end. In the end, we'll put some tests which can also help us understand if my hypothesis is correct or not. Okay. So there are two federal cases now, but there is one common thread between them. Both the federal cases talk about the same murder, Sardar Hardeep Singh Nijjar. There is case one in New York, which is US versus Yadav and Gupta. there are two people named there. Vikas Yadav, who is an Indian intelligence R&AW officer. He was charged in October 2024, still at large. Nikhil Gupta, who has been extradited already, has pled guilty in February 2026, and the target was Pannun, also Sardar Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada. Now we have case 2, which is US versus Bishnoi, where the charged individuals are not Yadav and Gupta. They are not named in this case, but we have named names of Lawrence Bishnoi, Goldie Brar, some other cross-national terrorists, and it is alleged that they are the ones who ordered the June 18th assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Surrey. And there is no Indian official named in this case. So these are two cases, but for the New York case, the primary case is Sardar Hardeep Singh Nijjar murder. For the US versus Bishnoi case, Sardar Hardeep Singh Nijjar murder is one major part of the case, but like none of the people in the US case are named here, none of the Indian officials are named here. And the only people who are named here receive entirely new names, and they are labeled as some kind of a criminal gang. Okay, so that's one of the facts. Two federal cases, but one murder. Okay. June 18, what happened on June 18, 2023? On June 18, 2023, in Surrey, British Columbia, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Sikh activist, is shot dead by masked gunmen as he is leaving his place of worship on Father's Day. It's a Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara in Surrey. And on the same evening, as per the court documents, Department of Justice indictment in the New York case, the Indian intelligence officer Vikas Yadav sends Nikhil Gupta, the other co-accused who has pled guilty, a video of Nijjar's body slumped in his truck. And 1 hour later, Yadav sends the address of Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, a US citizen who also has to be assassinated. So there's a lot of evidence in that case how this conspiracy was hatched, how Vikas Yadav, an intelligence officer, Nikhil Gupta, some kind of a person who was arranging all these assassinations, how they were in touch with some top government officials in India, and basically this whole thing was being run by the government of India. Okay, and they had a hit list of Sikh activists they wanted to murder on American and Canadian soil. All this is from the court case in New York. Now let's keep moving. Let's read some of the wording in the court case in New York. Okay, this is page 12 of the New York superseding indictment. This was unsealed on October 17, 2024, and I quote, Yadav sent Gupta a video clip showing Nijjar's bloody body, unquote. Another quote, approximately 1 hour later, Yadav sent Gupta the street address of the victim's residence in New York City. Okay, and then I have a full page 12 here. And I'll just read out the page 12 from that court case for you guys, just to get you a sense like how detailed and how much evidence they have of the Indian state involvement in this murder. On about June 18, 2023, and I'm quoting directly the page 12 of the Gupta and Yadav case in New York. So, quote, on about June 18, 2023, masked gunmen shot and killed Nijjar, an associate of the victim, and another leader of the Sikh separatist movement outside a Sikh temple in Canada. Later that evening, Yadav sent Gupta a video clip showing Nijjar's bloody body slumped in his vehicle. Gupta replied that he wished he had personally conducted the killing and asked Yadav for permission to go to the field. Yadav responded that secrecy is important and it is better you do not get involved in action. Approximately 1 hour later, Yadav sent Gupta the street address of the victim's residence in New York City. Gupta forwarded the video clip showing Nijjar's bloody body to the assassin in US and the two assassins in US, and the minutes after receiving it from Yadav. Soon after, on or about June 19, 2023, Gupta spoke with the UC, which is undercover agent, by audio call, and Gupta told UC that Nijjar was also the target, but that Nijjar was number 3 on the list, and not to worry because we have so many targets. But the good news is this: The good news is this: now no need to wait. Separately, Gupta also held an audio call with the CS during which Gupta confirmed that Nijjar was the target that Gupta had previously mentioned as the potential Canadian job, stating, "This is the guy. I send you the video. We don't give, we didn't give to UC this job, so some other guy did this job in Canada." Unquote. In a change from his prior instructions to delay killing the victim until after the so there's a Prime Minister Vidit Gupta told the CS that UC should kill victim as soon as possible, informing CS that we got the go ahead to go anytime, even today, tomorrow, or as early as possible. The UC has to finish the job, brother. Gupta also told the CS to expect the victim to be. So all this is there. Like, you guys can read that court case, okay? So this is what the government's own words are in that court case and all the evidence. Now, what the Gupta, like, there's all these courts, there are live video calls they have recorded. Video call also, those are found on the phone of Gupta, which were also recorded. All that is there in that case. Now, on October 2024, so initially there was an indictment against just Gupta, but on October 2024, there was a superseding indictment, which also named Vikas Yadav as an employee of the government of India and as the person who was directing Gupta to do all these actions. FBI also issued a poster with the picture of Vikas Yadav. It was also framed as a national security issue because Vikas Yadav was working as serving intelligence officer of the Indian state. And then there were statements by the Attorney General on October 17, very big statements. We will hold accountable any person regardless of their position or proximity to power. So this was the first time a serving Indian intelligence officer was named. And then, some political statements were also made that we will not let it rest until justice is done. Okay. This is the New York case. This is October 2024. Now, this is October 2024. Now we are almost 1.5, 2 years after that time frame. What happens? So the incentives changed. So on February 3, 2026, and we are just tracking the New York case right now, Trump and Modi announced the framework of the US-India trade agreement, a marquee deal of the year. Covers tariffs, defense, technology, energy. And it's a huge deal, $500 billion something, and then Trump announced it in a big way. Still not signed, but agreed in principle after the meeting between, Trump and Modi. What happened, well, the moment this is announced, on February 13th, just 10 days after this deal, Nikhil Gupta quietly pleads guilty to everything. Okay, he just pleads guilty. So the repercussions of Nikhil Gupta pleading guilty, because now there will be no trial, and there's a plea deal, like there'll be no jury. All this evidence that is being alluded to in the indictment, like the video call in which some of the top Indian intelligence officials and maybe even the Home Minister of India was caught giving instructions to assassinate American citizens, all those tapes will not come out in the open court. Okay, so all that evidence will now not be shown to the people. So this is the effect of this plea deal that Gupta was allowed, and it's very strange. And I will read out what happened on the day he pleaded guilty in the court. He just was made to say 60 words. Okay. And I'm quoting him. This is his own words. Quote, in the spring of 23, I agreed with another person to have another individual to murder a person in United States. And in furtherance to that crime, I had delivered $15,000 in cash via cellular phone to another individual in United States. Okay. This is the exact words. Did he name anybody? Did he name Yadav? No. Did he name India? No. Did he name anyone else? No. Everything becomes another person. Okay, and he's allowed this plea deal. Let me actually, there's a very nice, we have the actual discussion that happened in the court, and let me share my screen and walk you through that very funny discussion that had happened in the court. This is an article by an Indian. It's a website, The Wire, okay? And it is titled, "What exactly did Nikhil Gupta tell the US judge while entering his guilty plea?" These are all coming from court documents, and I'm reading verbatim. The court: "Sir, can you tell me now in your own words what you did to make you believe that you are guilty of this charge?" The defendant: "May I read aloud?" The court: "Yes, but make sure you read slowly." The defendant in English: "In the spring of 23, I agreed with another person to have another individual to murder a person in the United States, and in furtherance to that crime, I delivered $15,000 in cash via cellular phone to another individual in the United States." Okay. This is all the statement he makes. And then the judge says, "So I understand, sir, your allocution is that in 23, you and another person agreed to commit murder for hire, and in exchange for that, you received $15,000. Is that correct?" Then the attorney intervenes. He said, "Mr. Truffar," he said, "No, he paid somebody else $15,000. The defendant in English: "I paid $15,000 by using the cellular phone to another person." The court: "You paid somebody $15,000 to do this." Gupta then clarified that while he was in India at the time of payment, he knew the recipient. And the court: "Sir, at the time, what you said that person you were in India? But when that you paid that person you were in India?" The defendant: "Yes, Your Honor." The court: "Did you know that the person who received the money was in US?" Gupta: "Yeah, that I knew that he was in the US, in New York, that also." And the court said, "Okay, and where did you believe the person who was targeted for murder, where was that person?" Gupta says, "New York, in Queens." That's it. This is the entire conversation in the court that happened that day. Okay. And Nikhil Gupta pleads guilty, walks out of that court. And the attorney general allows this guilty plea. So very I don't know what to read out of it, but looks like quite quite interesting conversation plea deal, which is for 60 words. Okay, for a person who is now facing 40 years for surrendering his trial rights, he just has to say 60 words in the court. Okay, and then on 13th of February he pleads guilty. The sentencing is scheduled for May 29th. Does not happen. Okay, and then it is rescheduled to June 26th. Still does not happen on June 26th. Again rescheduled to September 25, 2026, which is the current date. No explanation has been given why this has been rescheduled by the court. The rescheduling of sentencing can happen, but like in such a case where somebody has just pleaded guilty, what are they waiting for? Okay. There are two possible plausible reasons why this could be happening. One is that he is probably quietly cooperating, and prosecutors are still climbing towards gathering more evidence from him against Yadav. And the government is in other explanation is that the government is in no hurry for a public hearing. That will basically invite questions that it doesn't want the public to ask, and the government is trying to hide all this evidence of the Indian state, which if it comes out publicly, it will make it very difficult for United States government to even publicly deal with any Indian official. I would say the second reason is probably more probable. Okay, so while this is happening in the New York case in US, what is happening with Vikas Yadav, the RNAW officer who is now named in the indictment? FBI issued a wanted poster by his name in October 24, and he's still at large in India. He's a free man. Okay, he was actually conveniently arrested the moment FBI named him. He was actually arrested predated. Okay, in documents he was shown that he was arrested even before FBI named him, but he was actually arrested after FBI named him, and they put some unrelated charges against him, and then bailed him out in like a couple of months. Now, the Indian law says that there is an extradition treaty between US and India, but the extradition treaty says if the person who is to be extradited, he has a criminal case ongoing in India, then the Indian government can hold him and not extradite him before those cases are resolved. And this can go on indefinitely. So basically, the Indian government can keep Vikas Yadav in India as a free man indefinitely and not have him extradited. Okay, so and on a political front, if you guys remember, the US government had announced that we have asked India to do a full inquiry, hold people accountable. India has done that inquiry, and they have given, their MEA has given a public statement that they have conducted a full-fledged inquiry, that this plot was being run by a rogue officer, and that officer, it was not by the organization or by India, and it just stops at that one officer. Okay, and now India has lodged a case against that officer, but that officer is on bail, and basically, like, there is no accountability. So India has shut down that inquiry. Everything is good. One rogue officer, the rogue officer cannot be extradited now because he has a criminal case in India, but he's free man. And here, Mr. Gupta pleads guilty, and no such evidence of India's involvement will need to come out to public. Okay. So now let's cut to July 7th. Now, what has happened on July 7th? On July 7th, now we have this another Operation Hardball coming. And but just before Operation Hardball, there's something that happened on July 6th. The trade deal that we talked about in February, it is it is entering its last mile. It is like, I think we have a commerce secretary who just traveled to India, and it is going to be get signed properly right now. And then on July 6th, the trade deal is in last mile. July 7th, the DOG unseals US versus Bishnoi, the first US charges over the Nijjar assassination against, like, this is the person. The previous charges were for Pannun's assassination time. Now we are talking about Nijjar's assassination, which happened in Canada. And here they name a gang. They don't call it like a terrorist gang. They call it like a criminal gang. And they say Bishnoi and Singh ordered the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. The victim is also not named. Hardeep Singh Nijjar is not named fully. He's just given initial HSN. We know HSN means Hardeep Singh Nijjar. And in this indictment, no Indian official is named anywhere in the 32 pages. Okay, no Vikas Yadav, no Nikhil Gupta is named here, and all the defendants are referred to as some kind of gang members. Okay, and there is like Bishnoi gang and Singh, and there's no Indian official named here. Now this has become a gang crime. The murder has now suddenly, from a transnational Indian government murder, now it has become a gang crime. Now see how the framing has changed. In October 2024, the Indian government employee in the case is the caption. You had the National Security Division involved publicly. You had the Attorney General. You had the FBI director speaking about it as a transnational crime, framed as a transnational repression, which is basically a state targeting a US citizen for speech. And then you had these statements that we will take action regardless of proximity to power. Now, come July 2026, after the trade deal, now the framing is transnational organized crime takedown. We didn't see the National Security Division speak up at all. No state actor is mentioned in this particular indictment. And in this indictment, there is also no acknowledgement of the Department of Justice's own file on the same murder that is running in New York. And then actually, India is thanked for the cooperation. Okay, so they actually thanked Indian state for the cooperation in arresting all these people, which are basically nobody, just foot soldiers. We know these. These guys are just extension of the Indian state. Okay, so while all this we talked about US, what is Canada doing? Canada is even doing something even more sinister in my view. Canada, like, while US, you can ask some, when we go further on the presentation, there could be some plausible reasons for the way they are behaving. But Canada has just totally given up, it seems. So on December 2025, Canada's Justice Department, it seems Canada is actually colluding with the Indian state actively, because in December 2025, Canada's Justice Department asked the federal court to conceal evidence in the Nijjar murder trial because disclosure, and I'm quoting this from their submission, quote, would be injurious to international relations, unquote. So, in Canada, there are four individuals who are being tried for the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Their Canadian government has put up a plea in the federal court that none of the evidence in this trial should ever be disclosed out because it will be injurious to international relations. Okay, so you see the connection, like how these two governments are cooperating to hide the Indian state hand and to avoid an embarrassment to the Indian state. Okay, and not only that, the Canada's public vocabulary has changed about all this issue. In October 2024, we had RCMP doing a press conference, and they publicly linked agents of the government of India to homicides, extortions in Canada through the Bishnoi network. And they also linked government of India to the murder of Sardar Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Now, come 1.5 years down the line, we have the change of government in Canada with Trudeau leaving and Carney coming into the picture. February 2026, a senior official in the Carney government is visiting Delhi and basically makes a statement that India is no longer a threat. Feb 2026, same time when all these trade deals are happening. In July 2026, RCMP commissioner made a statement now, totally reversing his earlier stand. He's saying no evidence that Indian officials were involved through this organized crime investigation. Okay, so it's a very cunning way to word this. That this particular investigation I'm not finding. There could be other investigations I'm finding their evidence, but not this particular investigation. So Canada is also doing a reset on this case. Okay. So what could be so I already laid out the evidence that, hey, this seems to me like day night clear that both Canada and seems like even US are willing to forego their own sovereignty for the sake of good relations with the Indian state. But there could be some other innocent explanations as well. We don't want to be one-sided in this. So, what could be those innocent explanations? If you want to try out the devil's advocate, one explanation could be that these repeated sentencing delays are a classic signature of a cooperator. That Gupta may be quietly helping prosecutors build more evidence against Yadav. Okay. Then the prosecutors are building the case upward, and then now that they have 11 more men in custody, they can be flipped, and there could be a superseding indictment that may still come. The door is still open in US. While this indictment has come of these individuals in California case, there could be a superseding indictment that can come in which more officials can be named, more details can be shared. So that could be one explanation that they are going slow, and then there's probably a superseding indictment that's going to come. Okay, this could be good, hopeful thing. So I'm laying out these 5 trusts. Okay, so don't trust, verify. Trust but verify. So you don't have to trust me. You have to verify. What will be those tests which will help us settle this understanding? What we have to watch out for. On September 25, on Gupta's hearing, if we see a max sentence, near max sentence, which will be roughly his max is 40, but like technically they calculate it in a different way. He's expected to get 20 years. Okay, if he gets that and no information comes out, you can just say that, hey, what I'm saying is true. It is just a way to hide the information to give India a soft landing. However, if there is a cooperation motion, if the state comes in and puts in a cooperation motion and sets up some other indictment before that, then we will see, okay, that this whole dealing of the sentencing was being for some other reason, that they were building the case further up. Second test will be, does Washington formally publicly request an extradition, or they just remain silent? Till now, US has not formally even put in a request for extradition of Yadav. So do they actually put in an extradition request? That will be a big test. we can see what India does to Yadav. Will it? We all know India will do nothing to Yadav, so we can leave that aside. Okay. The other good test could be: is there going to be a superseding indictment in this California case? This indictment, as we know, is hiding more than it is actually telling the people. So, is there going to be a superseding indictment where the framing will come? You will have Indian government officials named, and the other test could be: does the Canada withdraw its secrecy motion in the BC Supreme Court? If they withdraw it and they share that evidence, then you can say that, hey, and they can do all this. They can withdraw that secrecy motion anytime. Then it will be a good evidence of that, hey, these two governments have not totally, bend their knees in front of the Indian state, and that they are willing to, pursue their own sovereignty and justice in this case. And just give me one sec. They have a couple of young people disturbing me. Okay, so this is what it is. We are at the end of our discussion, and I'm going to now open up the debate. We have a couple of requests for speakers. We'll take some questions. Vanta Logic is also here. I'll invite him to speak. Sikh Policy Center is here. A couple of people are here. Let's see. Haji, I am 855G. Anything you have to say on all this evidence, all the way I'm looking at this? What's your opinion?
Yeah, actually, it's making sense. In my opinion, we have to look at things like from a bird eye viewpoint, because we have to link Canadian cases with US cases. Then we can form an opinion like from where everything is being directed. The main thing is the main proctor, Lauren Bishnoi, he is sitting in Sabarmati jail of Gujarat. So we know Modi, Amit Shah, who are the topmost leaders of government of India, they come from that state, and they have full. And also on the local level, they have their government too. So they have a full control of all the jails and everything, all government machinery in Gujarat. So the main proctor is hiding in the jail. So and he's operating from there. So you can connect the dots.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The it's not a secret to anybody who is from India that the so-called gang is actually a celebrated government-sponsored terrorist or criminal. He has full backing of the Indian state. He's not acting
Yeah,
alone.
actually,
Yeah.
I will give you another example. If you go back 10, 15 years, even 20 years back, you will see in Mumbai, they used to have a local gangs. I don't know what, Mumbai Underworld. And there was a one don called Shota Rajan. And if you go to YouTube and search Shota Rajan interview, you will hear a famous Godi media reporter, taking his interview. And Shota Rajan is basically talking about, hey, there is nothing above the nation for me. And he was well known that he is government of India's puppet working against Daud. And if you listen to the wording Lawrence Krishna is using nowadays, because in his interview that he conducted from the jail, he mentioned that there is nothing above the world. Hum to ji desh ki seva kar rahe hain. He said that. So you can see the pattern. So they have used the same nationalistic Hindu pattern, like this thing previously to eliminate the Mumbai underworld, and they're using it again to eliminate the Sikh activist.
Yeah, it's kind of quite befitting that many countries they use religiously ideological motivated proxies, right? You have Iran, sometimes Pakistan has used them, um, but like you have India who is using scamsters and criminals for their cross-border international terrorism, which is probably quite telling on their mindset and cultural makeup as well, which is quite criminal in nature, like a low-end criminal, and it's like it's also quite while it is very sinister for the people who are impacted, especially the Sikhs, especially us. But from an outsider point of view, it is quite laughable when you see the Indian intelligence agencies using like third grade criminals to conduct cross national terrorist acts. But though it has gotten sinister many times with the Air India Kanishka bombing, and we can talk about that. But yeah, but we also have another speaker today, Vanta. Vanta, I'm not sure how familiar you are with these cases, and but what do you make out, and you have any comments to make?
Yes, hi, Ajit Baji. Hope you're good. For me, I've obviously came about, these cases to read about them because of you guys. You and our Sikh sister here. I guess you know her. I wouldn't take the name, but anyway, thing is, for me, I'm not a Sikh, but if I were living in Canada or America or anywhere else in the world, in Australia, I would see India kind of winning, trying to win again. They kind of lost their reputation after the war with Pakistan. They were losing that ground, but they are actually kind of, they're regaining that thread again, which is not good. For me, if I were a Sikh, I would see it as a Hindu hit against Sikhs, which it happened. This is how it happened mostly. The Bishnoi gang, or, it's basically Indian state, the RSS team is actually actively working against Sikhs living abroad, right? And for me, I would have gathered Sikhs to actually somehow reach the governments of those respective countries, Canada or America, and ask them, how come you guys are somehow looking like, what is India offering you guys? What is that they are offering that somehow you kind of omitted the word terrorism from the cases altogether? Why are you doing it? This is actually a foreign country actively working in your country, sending their, those terrorists to have, the hit squads and killing Canadians or Americans, regardless of their religion. They could have been Sikhs, they could have been Muslims, they could have been any other, people from any other religion. But what they are doing, they are actually targeting Sikhs. So Sikhs need to unite and talk and on a forum and ask those governments, why are you somehow discounting us being an American, being a Canadian? How can you dismiss them being terrorists and you discounted it to gangs or something? So the question I would ask them, what is India offering you for all that, all that support you're giving them right now, knowingly that those people were not Indians who murdered Nijjar? Why are you not asking? Why you guys? It's okay to go into the details of the case or whatever is happening in India or wherever, whichever state Bishnoi belongs. That's okay. But the case is India is winning again. India is winning against Sikhs, against the movement. And if it gets forgotten now, if it gets slided away, in time, nobody will remember. Just like, the movie, remember I was talking to you about the movie Satluj? They didn't let it, air in stream in India. So that was a story I didn't know until I watched the movie. Because nobody told me that story, that this happened in 1995. But this happened, now I know how many people had lost their lives, who went missing, who were thrown into rivers, families, almost 30,000 people. That's what I got to know by researching and after watching the movie.
30,000 was in one district, Avanta.
I'm just saying, I didn't even know that even one person was, got murdered. But now I know. So if the Sikh community living abroad just forgets about it or just talks about the case only, you should be asking the government the question, what is India offering you? Is it the money? Is it the trade? What are they offering you? I don't understand. That these Canadian government or US government, or maybe tomorrow it will be in Australia or New Zealand, something like that would happen. And they will just fold before Indians, before Indian state, before Modi, just like that. What are they offering them? That's very worrying. That's the question I would ask. Yes, thank you.
No, excellent, Vanta. I think there are two major failures. Okay, there is a big, humongous failure by the Canadian state, the American state now, and there is also a failure of the Sikh diaspora. And I'll touch on both of them. Canada, by treating this lightly, and this is not the first Sikh that India has murdered on Canadian soil. Look at the Air India 182 bombing, the Kanishka bombing. India murdered 329 people and got away with it. And Canada not only allowed India to get away, they actively colluded with the Indian state to hide their hand in the entire bombing. Okay, so they are almost like an accomplice now in that horrible terrorist act. So Canada had given a free hand to India, and there are multiple reasons for it, why they are in such a situation, and we'll talk about that. And I have done a lot of spaces on that. And America is I see America now on the same path. India has so much influence within America and Canada through its diaspora and other elements that it blinds the political side of the political establishment in these countries. Every senator today in US is dependent upon funding by Indian donors. Every senator, not just funding, even the votes, the Indian voters, the Indian diaspora vote, their election is stuck on that. So they are silent. And why being silent? By being silent, and by following in the footsteps of Canada, they are literally giving up the Canadian sovereignty, because these actions of India are not against just the Sikhs. These are against the sovereignty of Canada and America. You can take Sikhs out of West. It's not going to deter India from not indulging in these activities. So that's one. So that's one failure: the national security failure, the political failure. And then the other failure is the failure of the Sikh diaspora. Okay, so I ask many times, we have 18 member of parliament in Canada who are Sikh. The government, Carney government today is holding majority by how many MPs? 7, 8, 9 MPs. Even if half of these Sikh MPs get together, they can make the Carney government fall. They are the kingmakers. But where are they? They are nowhere to be seen. They just can't get together. Either they themselves are compromised by the Indian state, or they are too scared. I wouldn't call them even Sikh. If you look at their names, everybody has their caste behind their name, which is the biggest sign that somebody has left Sikhi, that he's already into the Hindu fold. And so all these guys are no longer like a core Sikh at themselves. Many of these MPs are themselves Sikh. They have Sikh sounding first names, not their last names, but Sikh sounding first name with last name sounding like a Hindu. And that's what they are. And that's why there is no action. They never get together. They can easily, if they have even an iota of respect, they can easily force the Carney government to take care of Canadian sovereignty. It is not about taking care of Sikhs. It's about Canadian sovereignty. They can make the government fall even, but they won't do it. And that's where I urge the diaspora, the Sikh diaspora, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨੇ, ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ Sikh MPs ਨੇ, they should be made to see the light of the day. Like, ask them tough questions when they come to the Gurdwara next time. Don't let them come and ask for votes.
Just to add, Baji, I'm a great believer of, consolidating, gathering your own strength. If I'm weak, for example, and you are the one with strength and power, and you overcome me, it's not your fault. It's my fault that I remain weak, all this time. I didn't took any precautions. I didn't took any measurements, any measures to actually strengthen myself against you, knowing that you're my enemy, for example.
Yeah.
Right? It's not your fault. You're doing exactly what power does. Right?
That's
power,
true.
it carves its own path. Right? So if I'm weak, I'm standing in your way, and you actually are able to remove me, it's not your fault. It's my fault that I didn't have the strength to actually stand before you.
That's true. That's true.
So we can blame India all day. I know they're wrong, but what about you guys? Why didn't you, strengthen your, yourself as a community actually to speak against it? This is the time now, because like I gave the example of Satluj, I didn't know that until the movie came out. Someone made an effort to make that movie and bring that, that incident back in 1995, 96. That actually came to, to my knowledge now, because someone actually was making an effort somewhere. So for me, Sikh community in Canada, the biggest diaspora living over there, the Khalistanis, they have to now, actually stand up and speak to the government, speak to the, why are, the secrecy, whatever the law you said on those files, where, the Trudeau actually called them terrorists, and this Prime Minister is not calling them terrorists for some reason. That has to bring, they have to bring that, whatever the files are, to the public. They have to make them public. So India can, Sikhs can actually expose Indian, the terrorism. Why are you guys just sitting there? It's fine. We can talk about India all day. They are bad. They are, terrorists. They are scammers, fraudsters. We know that. But what did you do? That's my question.
Yeah, no, absolutely fair question. And I have a comment by Jaspreet Singh here. He's saying Sikh MPs are useless. He's talking about Canadian MPs, obviously. They can't stand like Trudeau and speak for the Panth. Guts nahi hage, intention bhi nahi hegi. Absolutely right. And Jaspreet, the only thing I would say is, are they really Sikh? And ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਂ ਹੀ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਲਓ ਤੁਸੀਂ, like you can make out.
ਭਾਜੀ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਏਗਾ ਨਾ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਬੈਠੀ ਹੈ, ਕੈਨੇਡਾ, ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਬੈਠੀ ਹੈ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਬੈਠੇ, ਓਟਾਵਾ ਬੈਠੀ ਹੈ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਬੈਠੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹ ਜਾਣ ਨਾ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਕਿ ਕੀ ਮਸਲਾ ਹੈ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਮਸਲਾ ਹੈ, ਕਿ ਕੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵੋਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇਵਾਂਗੇ, ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ, ਤੇ ਕੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਉਹ ਮਤਲਬ ਨਸਲ ਮਿਟਾ ਦੇਣਗੇ, ਫਿਰ ਇੰਡੀਆ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਬਗੈਰਤੀ ਕਰਨਗੇ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਖਾਮੋਸ਼ ਬੈਠੇ ਰਹੋਗੇ। ਕੁਛ ਤੇ ਕਰੋ ਨਾ, ਕੋਈ ਤੇ ਬੋਲੇ ਨਾ ਬਈ, ਉੱਠ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਏਗਾ, ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣਾ ਇੱਕ ਰਸਤਾ, ਆਪਣਾ ਲੀਡ ਲੈਣੀ ਪਏਗੀ। ਉਹਦੇ ਬਗੈਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਏਗਾ। ਥੋੜੇ ਮੁਜ਼ਾਹਰੇ ਵੀ ਕਰਨੇ ਪੈਣਗੇ, ਥੋੜਾ ਇਤਜਾਜ ਵੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਏਗਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਖਲੋ ਕੇ, ਕੋਈ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਪਏਗੀ। ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਚਲੇਗਾ। ਇਹ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਫਿਰ ਕੱਲ ਆਏਗਾ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਹਰ ਚੀਜ਼ ਤੇ ਮੱਟੀ ਪਾ ਦਿਓ, just shove everything under the rug. I mean, this cannot go on. This cannot go on.
Yeah, absolutely, Vanta, absolutely, yeah. And with you, and we are going to make our efforts, whichever little way, and baki ta hamare de hath ch hai. But anybody else who has any question on this topic, I just want to make sure, and we need not extend it. There are a lot of activity going on. I'll be soon doing some spaces on this movie Satluj, to kind of also highlight the crimes that India had committed in the 80s and 90s. They're still ongoing. There's still extradition murder going on. But that time, Mata, you have no idea what that movie is portraying is not even the tip of the iceberg. I have lived through that time, and what it is portraying is, as I said, not even the tip of the iceberg. There are certain stories that cannot even be narrated of the treatment. And we have Sikh Policy who just joined us. Sikh Policy Center, thanks for joining. You have any comments to make?
I was just going to ask, they were successful in getting this movie blocked first, and then getting the narrative changed to say, oh, it wasn't the central government, it was just these local police officers that were the source of the problem. Is anybody buying that narrative?
I think the attempt was that, but nobody's going to buy that narrative. Eventually, I think that's why they took the movie off. They first launched it and then they took it off. And but that's a good question, Sik. But I will invite you. I'm going to have a separate space on just on the movie. I think that deserves a good discussion, and why they bought this out, and then why they are probably will end up regretting. ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਗੱਲ ਯਾਦ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ somebody asked him ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਜੀ, you are just 2% ਐਂਡ ਆਟੇ 'ਚ ਨੂਣ ਬਰਾਬਰ ਨੇ। ਤੇ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਵਾਬ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਦੇਖੋ, ਆਟੇ 'ਚ ਜਦ ਨੂਣ ਪੈ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਨਾ, ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਗਲੇ ਦੀ ਥੱਲੇ ਲੰਘਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ। ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, ਅਸੀਂ ਹੋਵਾਂਗੇ 2%, ਬਟ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਨੂਣ ਬਣਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਗਲੇ 'ਚੋਂ ਰੋਟੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਨਿਕਲਣੀ। ਤੇ so that's what this is a prime example of that. This whole movie thing, but we'll talk about it. Yeah, but anything? Did you policy? I don't know whether you heard the presentation. Have you been following this indictment in California? And my take, and I presented some data, H1 code documents. It seems like it's kind of they're keeping the door open, but they are really giving India an opportunity to have a soft landing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's all about trade. For America or Canada, we are negligible. Okay. It doesn't matter if 30,000 Sikhs got killed or 100,000 Sikhs. It doesn't matter or doesn't register for them. So it doesn't, and that for them, it's just about trade and economics. So we have to show that India is not what America or Canada thinks it is. It's not economically strong. It's not some country that you would want to invest in. These people are backwards. 90% of the country lives in poverty. I think some effort needs to be done to explain to these people that trading with India is a lost cause. Just with this Apple fiasco where all their data got breached, and Apple is now an open source, and China is having a field day with iPhone 18. I think a case can be made that if you go to India to do trade or business, you're not going to have an easy time of it.
Yeah, India was actually none of the American businesses have earned a single penny in India, and they have lost trillions of dollars. And whether it's the Ford, General Motors, the finance companies, everybody has been kicked out, and Walmarts of the world. And now they are, and in fact, we are losing so many jobs to India. Like, you have no idea, like how much we lose in the services sector. It's almost like $300 billion worth of services imports we take from India. Add on top of that $150 billion worth of remittances that the Indian diaspora sends back to India. Add on top of that $120 billion worth of goods, the deficit that we have in the trade balance in just the goods trade. So we're talking about 300 billion plus 150, almost like $580 billion worth of wealth goes out net out of US to India every year. That is what is keeping India alive, nothing else. And they use that money to actually undermine the West, to pump in more immigrants here, legally, illegally, name it, and gain more control of the Western institutions, the Western kind of thought process and mindset. And given these actions by the national security establishment, where it has totally gone silent on this, in America, I am really concerned that, after UK and Canada, whom we know are totally beholden to now, or who have no sovereignty left when it comes to India, America is very much on that path. And if American establishment doesn't wake up, it will be a fait accompli for Indians here as well. And that will not be good for humanity at all. I think that will be a very dangerous world. Yeah.
Do you remember recently Donald Trump gave a...
Yeah, I'm 855. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Akali had his hands raised. I'll come back to you if that's okay. Okay. Yeah. Akali ji, please go ahead. Waheguru ji ki fateh.
So I just seen a article from a news from CTV that RCMP is saying that India is not involved in the killing of violations.
Correct.
So maybe a little doubtful about what USA is thinking. They, as you said, they have kept the door open. But from Canada, we can clearly see that where they stand. So I think the Canadian Sikhs, they should come out now and do whatever, talk with the government and the political parties or help protests like we do against other Indian consulates. So because this is a clear violation of basic Canadian rights. I mean, how can you? Because a few days before, three previous directors of CSIS, they came on the TV and they clearly stated that Indians are involved in it. Even RCMP's issued statements that Indians are involved in it. So what happened? So that's the one thing that the state should come out and protest against the government and let the Canadians know that their institutions like the RCMP, they are being diluted. They are being run by the corrupt people, because it's not just, in simple words, it's a loss of Canadian sovereignty. I think this is the big word, the loss of Canadian. And the second thing is, what's happening in the USA and in Canada, the Sikhs should be worried that they will not be used as, the balancing weight in this situation for a trade deal. We need to be concerned about it. Trusting the Canadian or the American governments too much and just waiting and keep waiting for the final answer, I don't think that's the right way to do it. We need to make sure that we are not being used as a balancing act and to make a trade deal with India.
Yeah, I have my. If you ask me, I hope I'm wrong, but my mind, if I use my just my thinking power, and if I'm being an objective analyzer of the situation, then America is probably just using Sikhs as a bargaining chip and a pressure point against the Indians, and kind of pay some. Ultimately, it is a very serious issue if a foreign government is murdering your own citizens. And so they have to do something. They just can't be seen as not doing anything. So it's kind of a very half-hearted effort in my view.
But that's understandable. Like the governments do it. Everyone works for their own self-interest. But the real question is what we get out of it. We should get something out of it. And another thing is, if we don't stop it now, and they get away with all those killings, because it's not just by Nijjar, it's all the extortions and so many other people who got killed on the names of gang wars and drugs, especially the Sikhs in Canada. So all those people who got killed, if we don't stop it here, then who says that they won't do another genocide in Punjab? If they can get away with one thing, they're gonna go bigger.
Yeah, no, Kali, you're very right. I think that's where we need to go to what Vanta said. Okay, we have to realize that we are living as second-class citizens. No matter where you are, whether you are in US, whether you are in Canada, whether you are in Punjab, you are second class until and unless you have your own homeland. Okay, it's a harsh truth that the Sikh Panth has to accept, and then we can do something about it. Now, people who are willing to live second class, okay, they are good. I don't call them Sikh. They're fine, but that's a harsh truth, and that's the effort why I project these facts is time, and I'm going to do my best. I'm not willing to live second class, and we'll see what happens.
But in these countries like Canada and US, we can at least use the weight of the Constitution. We can at least come out. We can, do with the legal framework and all that. We can at least expect some fairness from the institution. So that is not true for India. So while we realize that we have no permanent solution until we get our own land and our own country with our own borders, still we can, fight with the hope that in the Western society, there is a chance that we can get some positive outcome.
Yeah. I think, I won't count on that hope because every day, the more influence India gets here, it's going to keep getting worse for not just the Sikhs, but for the American people. And so something has to change. Okay, we have to speak up more. We have to do something about the power imbalance that Vanta talked about. And I know Maestro joined. Maestro, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me, Harjeet?
Yeah, I can hear you, Master. Go ahead.
Okay. I know all good talk, good points brought up by Kanti what tattoo. I was thinking, in case of Canada, at least, do you think that there's a possibility that through backdoor diplomacy, the Indian intelligence agencies might have said to CSIS that, hey, look, if you don't, if you really expose us at this time, then we can also expose you for Air India 182? Because even back then, say what you may, but it was not possible without the Canadian intelligence covering up the evidence that the Indian state is involved, whatever the reason may be at that time. Do you think it's possible that they must have blackmailed them to some extent, or was it mostly trade?
Yeah, are you saying the Canadians would have blackmailed the Indians with that evidence?
The other way around. That Indian state must have said oh, if we go down, we take you down with us.
Oh, in the Kanishka case or in the or something?
Yeah, the Kanishka case.
Yeah,
that if you don't keep covering for us, right, then we will expose you to the entire world.
Yeah, no, they're that need not even be said. That's just common sense, because the Canadian government is complicit in covering the tracks of Indian state. Okay, the inquiry that was set up, the public commission. You read the wording. It was forbidden from inquiring into the Indian role. So the Canadian state got so embroiled in that whole act to make sure that India's name does not come up, that now if it comes up, it's going to be not just an embarrassment, it will be like a huge scandal and of corruption, it'll put a whole question mark on if Canada is even a state. And it will actually expose the dirty underbelly of the Canadian state, which is basically now nothing more than a playground from the Indian intelligence agencies. So that is where I think they are in no position to expose it, because if they were in the position, they would have exposed it in '85. But they are not in a position. We some hope was expected from America. I would say all that hope is lost. But as I said, I have laid out 5 tests. We will see when of these. I'll repeat them again. Watch out for these 5 things. If any of one of those happens, then we'll have hope. Otherwise, I will put America in the same bucket as Canada. I think it's a gone case. But yeah, we have 2 hands raised. We'll go to 855, then we'll come to you, Maestro. 855, please go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask. So, as you know, Department of Justice have decided to, take down the case against Adani, what of the corruption he was doing. What do you think of that? Is it related to this overall this thing, where they're trying to give free hand to government of India just for trade? Is it part of that?
Yeah, it's kind of that whole Adani case was also, I think, all politics, maybe political as well as geopolitical driven. Who doesn't know? Was it like a surprise that Adani is indulging in corruption in India? Like, who doesn't know? Like, is there any single businessman of India who is not indulging in corruption in India? So, and many of these companies are raising funds in the US. Tata has been doing it. Infosys has been doing it. Reliance has been doing it. So, targeting Ambani was obviously like a targeted act. And so they needed something out of India. And if India gave it, they will look the other way. सेम वे मैं सिखा पंथ ਨੂੰ भी यही कहना कि ठीक है अमेरिका ये है वो है बट आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू ले माय एग एज अ सिख आई एम नॉट गोइंग अमेरिका ਨੂੰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਨੂੰ the way they are going very soon America will need us, okay, and then we will see whether to help them or not. But before going to the next question, I'll just read this from Jaspreet Singh, a comment he has posted, and it is true. He says ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਸਿਰਫ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਿਲੇਗਾ। ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਸਿਕਿਉਰਿਟੀ ਏਜੰਸੀਆਂ, ਪੁਲਿਸ, ਕੋਰਟ ਹੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਹੱਕ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਗੀਆਂ। ਬਾਕੀ ਵਰਲਡ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਡੀਲ ਲਈ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਾਸੇ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ। Absolutely true. Like, it's common sense. Okay, it's time. Like, especially I think I hope the first generation Sikhs who are born here, who are spending and wasting their time and energies, on this Black Lives Matter, and then there is this liberal fight, and they're all brainwashed by this uber liberal agenda of rights. But what about your own rights? Your own brothers and sisters, your own religion, you are being wiped off the face of the earth. So better smell the coffee to these six and come out and start working on the real problem, rather than the first world, what I call the issues that they create just to have a sense of righteousness. Yeah, Maestro, go ahead.
So yeah, the reason I brought up the Air India because I was just going back and forth with one of the ex CSIS employee or agent. He's retired now, I believe. He posted something about it, an unrelated thing about democracy and sovereignty, and I posted about the Air India and the Indian state, that their involvement within the Canadian system, and Air India came up and he said, "Oh no, that was done by Sikh terrorists." I'm like, okay. Then I posted some evidence. I'm like, okay, so why, are these claims floating around, right? Which are opposite to what you say. He said, "Oh no, that case is closed." He said, and I quote, that I was there when it happened. I was part of the thesis, and then he blocked me, saying that, "Oh, you're making unfounded quote unquote claims." So I don't know. It's very interesting whatever is going on. They're definitely trying to hide something that I don't know if it will ever come out, but it's a shame for Canada.
Yeah. And if people who you've not already done, I'm sharing on my screen the website I started. Not sure if you guys have seen it. The website is 329truth.com. I have put all the evidence, and people who are watching the screen, I put all the evidence of the court documents, the leaked secret memos of Canadian intelligence, the CIA documents, the congressional records, which give you the entire picture. It has all the inquiry reports, everything, all the databases here, so you can search it on your own as well. Everything I'm showing there is with the references, the direct primary source that is there. So if you want to learn about what happened on the airport, how this whole conspiracy was hashed, this is the most authentic source you can go to. It is called 329truth.com. I'm showing it on my screen. Please share this website further with people. And it has all the evidence, airport, all the inquiry reports, everything. And I've kind of distilled it in a way that an average person can understand what exactly happened here. And so it has video links. It has an evidence vault. If you go there, you will see all kind of evidence. You can go to videos if you are more trying to videos, if you want the video stories. Yeah. So please retweet this. Please share this website as much as you can. Spread the truth. So as to your point, coming to your point, I think you got it right. Canada has something to hide, and in the best case scenario, what they are hiding is embarrassment, the fact that they became accomplice in hiding the real culprits. In worst case scenario, which is also very probable, there could be some elements within CSIS who knew of this plot and actively colluded with the Indian agencies to make it work, and that will be like really something. And I can't say that मैं हकमी तौर पे नहीं कह सकता हूँ गल. We can't say that with lot of confidence, but there are some indications, some open questions which also point in that direction. So the truth, Bakita, I do believe. Look, I am a believer. I'm a Sikh. I believe in a God. I believe in justice, and I believe that the ghost of Air India 182 won't die down. The real culprits will be known one day. All these, people who have done this terrible crime or have worked. I call those people who actually work to hide the names of real culprits. They are even worse than those who actually bombed the aircraft, because it's even a worse act of terrorism. So it will come out one day. Haji Maestro.
Yeah, and I've been following this since the death of Nijjar a couple years ago. There was also this Canadian MP, I believe his name was Chandra Arya. he was very vocal about it, very pro-India stance, and then suddenly he disappeared, like from the political side too. Like he was just like shut down, I guess, or told not to just interact with anyone because he was saying that he's going to run for the prime minister of Canada, and he could not speak French. But yeah, the Canada is the way I see it. Like I've been to Canada. I visit Canada often from the US. It's so infiltrated by the Indian media, Indian actors. It's just insane. Like, how did it get so bad? It's beyond. It's just beyond my. I can't fathom it at all. From the U.S. side, I did read the news. I'm sure you all did. But do you think that they will keep slowly releasing these indictments to use as a pressure point for India? They're not going to release everything all at once, right? Like now, they first released the Bashir because in the first initial indictment, there was also a talk of a video, right? Phone records, video showing the Indian politicians, right, at the top level. Do you think that this more evidence will slowly come out and the US will use it as a pressure point for trade with India?
Yeah, definitely US is using it as a pressure point for something. Now, and that's where I think it's a fundamental flaw in the US policy, because if they're using it as a pressure point, but basically they're doing it, they're trading their sovereignty for short-term trade or geopolitical gains. And that literally means like the end of US, honestly. It's very sad to say that, but it literally means that America is no longer a number one power. It's no longer a sovereign country, because they just can't even safeguard their own sovereignty. Imagine if I'm in a house and somebody who is like third world compared to me, like I'm a rich guy, powerful guy, he comes in my house, murders my own family member, and then I am cutting a deal with that person without holding him accountable. That's what these acts amount to. When you have foreign state conducting terrorism on your soil against your citizens, it's a very different ballgame. There is no other country which can get away with this. Okay, I can tell you right now, if it was even British who did this and who were caught doing this, American warships would have been outside United Kingdom on their oceans right now. But we don't see that in case of India. And a big part of that is the way the Indian state is influencing the policy within America. I was talking to somebody who is pretty well involved in US politics. And he told me, Harjeet, just call every senator, their office. They have their phone number public available. Just call those office and see who picks up the phone. And then, as per his calculation, more than 50 to 60% of the senators are beholden to the Indian state because their elections are dependent upon the Indian diaspora vote as well as the funding that they get from rich Indians. We had the live example of the governor of California. There was a bill that was passed unanimously by the Californian, both the houses in California, without a single dissenting vote. And it was an innocuous bill, okay? Nothing great. It's just about some educational training for local law enforcement on transnational repression. And there is one big funder who called, and it was just on, who was the governor? His name is, I've forgotten his name, but he's a very high, who is supposed to be the next president of the US. Newsom, yeah. And it was just there for his signature. And he just vetoed it. Got one call, and we all know the Indian who gave him a call. He said all the funding is going away, and next day he vetoed the bill. And imagine that. So it's I think it's a highly underestimated national security problem, and I think India is America's most overlooked national security threat, and America is going to pay for it dearly. Akali ji, go ahead.
And before there was a caste bill, and now there's a Hindu phobia bill that they have passed. So, and there's another thing, like just a vocabulary that we use, that we demand justice. I'm not sure if justice can be demanded and someone will give it to you unless you're in the position of power. So I think the slogan should be, we fight for our freedom rather than we demand justice.
Totally true, Kali ji. I'll just say one thing from Rahatnama. I think Bhai Daya Singh the Rahatname to hai, and this quote is attributed to Dasਵੇਂ Pasha. शास्त्रन के अधीन है राज राज बिना ना धर्म चला है धर्म बिना सब दल मले है. So so this is what we are dealing with. I know Vanta has his hand raised, and Vanta, I'll take this last question, then I'll go through the 5 tests again before we close the space. We'll try to wrap it up. The 5 tests, I think, where somebody had asked that, what are those things we need to look forward to assess whether America is just putting temporary pressure, you're going to use this as a pressure point, or are they seriously going to do something about this? So I'll repeat those 5 tests, but it'll be at the end. Vanta, go ahead, ask your question or add anything you want to add.
Yes, I'll just add a few things. For me, Ajit Paji, it seems like you've already kind of lost the hope in America, and your strength as a Sikh, as in Sikh community. I mean, I know people have gone a bit numb, Sikh, especially themselves in Canada and the diaspora living elsewhere. But again, for me, I guess whatever you do to expose Indian terrorism in Canada or elsewhere, everything should work as a brick towards Khalistan. It should be, whatever case you present should be working towards Khalistan. These days, as you can see the weakness and cracks in Indian, the image India had created. There are so many cracks since the war with Pakistan, which we have seen, which we have witnessed. Now, the J.D. Vance was, I saw the speech, I'm sure you guys must have also seen that speech about H-1B visa frauds, they're going to probe the cases. This is a dent in Indian image again, because they will find out, because I was researching on those cases. I've watched like 4 or 5 videos of actual cases, people actually investigating in Fresco, Texas, especially, all these fraudster Indian scammers were living, on H-1B. Most cases were traced back to Chennai, to Hyderabad and all that. And people actually have been, from America, been sent from private companies to actually investigate how these, people are coming to it. Wherever he goes, you people must have also noticed that he demands one thing is always on his agenda, and that's bringing more Indians
Correct.
to those countries. He went to Italy. He said, I need you to Meloni. He said, I need at least 50,000 Indians coming, new immigrants. He went to Japan. He asked for the same thing. He went to Australia. He asked for the same thing. He is going to New Zealand, New Zealand Prime Minister actually said that they're going to limit Indian, migrants number and all that in future. But he will visit New Zealand. He'll ask for that again. Thing is, this is how India is gaining influence, because the experiment was successful in Canada.
Yeah.
The experiment might be successful in US as well.
Yeah.
Now, they have learned this way, that this is how, because what happens is these people those immigrants slowly become citizens.
Yeah.
And then they start voting. And what happens, the new politicians come from these communities, Hindu communities, which are actually linked with Delhi back home, who, those are puppeteers who actually pull the strings of those people actually working, like in Canada, like in other countries, the Indians gaining influence like that. So the experiment actually won. The experiment actually worked in Canada. It will work in Australia. It will work in Japan. It might work in New Zealand. This is how they're. So my point is, Sikh community living abroad should write about this. Should raise the issue that Indians should be banned from coming. Because what I learned from one of those videos, the research video this woman was doing, she went to India and she asked those people like how she kind of impersonated as someone who needs these degrees, fake degrees, and all that. He said there is no problem. In 6 months you'll get green card in the US, and might get the citizenship and all that. And this is this easy for Indians to actually. And they said, what are the? I mean, there must be some filters. And they said our Indian state is asking, to make visas easy for for Indians towards whichever country they go. They said just look for if he's not a terrorist or has any link with terrorists. Otherwise, if it's fake degrees, otherwise, if they're a scammer, if they're a fraudster, if they are faking their degrees, whatever, just let them have the visa and let them, leave the country. So this is how, India is actually, Modi is actually also sponsoring, this mass migration towards the first world countries. And this is India is gonna, have an influence in those countries in the future. So this has to be stopped. This has to be highlighted as well. And this is what I think. But what's happening in Canada? We saw the results. The Nijjar killing, it got swept the way it is now, and nobody is calling them terrorists. They are calling them some gangs. The narratives have been changed, have been, skewed. So this is what will happen in other countries too. So, by looking at the bigger picture, this is how India is gaining influence in the first world. And in the future, it will be very difficult to beat them. The time is now, I guess. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Bill, what you just said is absolute truth, nothing but the truth. Okay. Unfortunately, the truth that you laid out, the American politicians and the Canadian politicians are incapable of acting on that harsh truth. And to the earlier point, I just want to kind of clarify, not to argue against what you said, but just making a minor correction. Once I am a Sikh, I have not lost hope in US. I never had hope in US. I have lost hope. I might have lost hope for US. Okay, my hope is only in Guru Granth Sahib. My hope is only in that one God and the teachings of the Guru. As a Sikh, but it is my patriotic duty to hope well, to wish well, and to save America and the state from the evil.
Sorry.
I'm just making a point. No, I'm not arguing against you. It's this general point. Okay, this is not for you. Okay, this is in general. Because many Sikhs also, who are born Sikh family, they say, "Oh, America will do this for us." No, America is not doing anything for anyone. You are doing something for America if you are. Okay, America is just the name of a state. Okay, so look at yourself and your shoulders. What can you do? Never look at what America can do. You can always look at the Guru and the Almighty Allah, the Vaheguru, to do something for you. Okay, but otherwise, nobody else can do anything for you. Whether it's America, China, blah blah blah. We have to do something for ourselves. And
that was my point.
Yeah, absolutely. That was your point. That's why I'm putting it in a different way. And so I think it is time for all the people who are fortunate to be born in the house of Guru Nanak to realize this. And we are realizing this, and we'll get there. With that, let's just wrap up this space. I think I'll just say like a couple of things. Jaspreet has been commenting on my YouTube, and Sat Bachan ne bilkul, and here he says India will collapse like Soviet Union. Sat Bachan, Jaspreet Singh ji, bilkul Sat Bachan ne. It is past its expiry date. It is high time, and the last nudge that is required we will give very soon. With that, thank you everybody for your time. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa and Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.